So yeah, that's it. So.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, I'm just going to make it a quick intro. Hey, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Not For Nuthin. I am here with a local artist, entrepreneur, sort of. I'm going to let her introduce herself. So why don't you introduce yourself to everybody?
Hey, I'm Kelly Green. I work over in Bolton, Connecticut, and in East Hartford. I just acquired another shop. I've been tattooing for 23 years come May. I don't know. I've done a lot of things.
Yeah. Well, where are you from originally?
Originally, I grew up in wonderful Unionville, Connecticut. So I've been in Connecticut for the whole time.
Okay. But did you bounce around at all earlier on or no?
Shop-wise, I did. When I opened Stable Studio, that was my 13th shop.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
So did you have an initial, where did you actually apprentice?
I apprenticed at the Edge.
Oh, you did? The one that was downtown or the one up in South Windsor?
In South Windsor.
I never went to the one in South Windsor. So when I moved here, when I used to come back and forth from here in 2000, I guess, that's where I saw the Edge, and I had the giant obnoxious sound in downtown and stuff. And I didn't realize at the time that they were...
There's 4 of them.
Yeah, there were a few of them.
Yeah.
And now I think there's only the one, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah,
there was one, Enfield, New Haven, the South Windsor, and I think there was a Rhode Island one, I think was the 4th one. Oh, for real?
So how was it? What was it like? So a couple of people that I've talked to have worked there. Like I think Jim Lepresti had done a little bit of time there.
I feel like a good chunk of people. There's like a couple of those like major hubs from back in the day that like I feel like everyone spawned from.
I would imagine like probably early 2000s is when, because I think that because they were growing, I would imagine trying to get artists of that time, there weren't as many of us back then.
Yeah, there wasn't.
So you just put the word out, and there was no social media to do that.
Yeah.
You had to kind of know somebody.
I just kept walking around shops. I brought my awful portfolio and some artwork, and just, I kept asking a bunch of people, and eventually the Edge said yes. So I was like, okay.
How old were you when you, how old were you when you got your first tattoo?
Barely 18. When I got my first tattoo, 16. My mom signed for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Connecticut's one of those states that you can do that in. So we still don't do it, but we still want 18-year-olds.
It's a good thing and a bad thing. I feel like, I don't know, if they're responsible enough at 16 to get tattooed and, they're a responsible, respectful person, then I think it's fine. But I also have a lot of clients now that I've been tattooing since they were 16 still, and they're like in their 30s.
Oh, shit, okay. So that's kind of what we were talking about before, just the idea of setting your, cementing yourself in, as it were, you know what I mean? Because that's kind of what you did back in the day. You tattooed one family member, and then they brought everybody else. And
and now they're having kids, so I'm tattooing their kids, and that's crazy. That's when you feel old.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm like, I tattooed your mom before you were a thought. Like, now you're getting tattooed and you're 20.
Exactly, exactly. So how was the apprentice? Was it relatively? Was it a legitimate apprenticeship? Did you learn how to make needles, build a machine, do all the fun stuff that people lack nowadays?
I learned how to make machines. He pretty much like took things apart and moved things around and was like, put it back together. I was like, all right, cool, I could do this. He taught me how to make needles because back in the day, he was the guy that was unsoldering them, putting them in the autoclave and then redoing. So I made his needles for him.
Oh wait. So he was soldering off the tips and throwing the tips away?
Yeah, I hope so.
Okay, well, it's funny you should say, because the shop I worked in, I'd say it was probably my first 6 months. Like we used to, all the needles at the end of the night would go into a bin, like with Listerine in it and green soap. And then the tubes would sit in our sinks, and at the end of the night we would scrub our tubes. But at the end of the night as well, I would have to reach back into that bin of needles and take a toothbrush and bleach and hit each needle, put them aside. And I think I did that for 3-4 months before I realized that one day I was having an issue with a needle, like lining somebody. And I'm like, what the fuck? I can't get this fucking line in. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. The owner, the guy who apprenticed me, wasn't there. One of the guys was there. A fellow named Tom Butler, I learned an awful lot from. And he was the one. He's like, well, have you checked? He goes, have you looped your needle? And I'm like, loop? What's a loop? He's like, you don't have a loop? And I'm like, no. He goes, this is a fucking eye loop. And he gave it to me. And I picked it up and I put it in there to my eye. And I'm like, oh my God. It was like a five. It was like a 5 round. And it was like this. I'm like, oh God. I was like, that's not good. And he goes, no, it's not good. He goes, I can't believe you never looped a needle. I was like, dude, nobody showed me what a loop was. I had no idea. And didn't have the wherewithal to think about it. That night, at the end of the night, we pulled all the needles out and I looped probably 250 needles. I would go as far as to say 80% of those needles were fucked. And we'd been using them for like 4 months, 6 months.
Yeah.
And and the next day when Cliff comes in and he's like, what the fuck is this? And I'm like, dude. And I hand him the eye loop and I'm like, have you seen this? And he's just looking at me like, I think he was a bit mortified as well.
Yeah.
Because he realized just how bad it had gotten. And from that point on, that's when we went. We didn't go single service. We still eye looped everything.
Yeah.
I still have that eye loop that I use to this day. It's banged the fuck up, but I still have that eye loop that I still use to this day. So that was a big learning experience for me.
Yeah. It's crazy. Like when I think about like what we did back then, like even just, I don't think he reused the needles themselves.
Needle bars.
He might have.
That's an old school thing.
The needle bars he did.
Yes, because as long as you're burning them off and then you're sterilizing them.
It's the same as like sterilizing the stainless
exactly.
tubes. So I mean, I still think it would be fine, but there is something weird nowadays is like putting, used needles into the autoclave, and then I would take them and unsolder them and put the new.
Well, let me ask you a question. You're using a pen now, I'm assuming. You're using a rotary?
So, yeah.
I love the fact that everybody who admits to that, it's like they're giving away a piece of their soul to admit it.
But it sucks because like I used the coils for like, I don't know, probably at least 15 maybe 12 15 years of tattooing, and it kills your hands. Like it does
for some people. I don't think it's for everybody. Like when I switched over, it wasn't because my hands were bothering me. It was because there was this new technology that I wanted to check out, you know what I mean? And it was an old school guy that told me about it, so I'm like, I want to check this out. And there was a crazy learning curve to the point where I look back on it now and I'm like, why the fuck did you do that? Why would you switch over from something you knew was tried and true and worked fine, never had problems with your hands, and then switched over? But I think I was just so enamored by something new. And I'm sure you do that, with pigments or anything.
Yeah, I think it was, I was like, I'm loyal to the coil. I'm going to keep doing this because it puts in solid lines. I have them, I can, cater to however I want them to run. And then a couple guys were like trying the Neo-Tats and the rotaries, and I was just like, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, how do you even set that thing up? Like, what is this?
It is funny because when you think about it, it's actually it's simpler.
Yeah, it's way simpler. Yeah. But I was looking at it and I'm like, I don't know what this is. I don't know the pieces. Like, what if it breaks? How do I fix it? Like, I got to take the whole thing apart on the inside, and that's like shit. I never learned.
And nobody does.
Yeah.
And actually, you really can't. I mean, a Neo-Tat, it's a matter of replacing a motor. I've done that on some of my older machines, like my
two
Bishops.
Screws in the back, and
exactly, and it pops out. But it's funny because they never quite run the same because all rotaries are the motors are always slightly different. I've gotten 3 machines from the same company, and I don't think any of them run exactly the same. I don't think it's gotten to that point.
It depends on how many times they've gotten thrown around in the box.
Well, there's that too. There's definitely that. So how long did you work at the Edge before you moved on?
So I only apprenticed. My apprenticeship was like 5 months, which nowadays I'm like, how was it only 5 months? But I don't know if they were just trying to push people out, or I don't know. The guy who taught me was great in the way that he taught me all the old things. Like I know how to make needles. I know how to do machines. I learned his way of doing flash and stencils and hand stencils, and but he wasn't a great tattooer.
No, well, that's why I think when people mention the Edge, that's the first thing that comes to mind. It's just this gaudy bullshit. It's all bullshit.
But you don't learn just from the person teaching you. You learn from the whole shop. So there was a lot of people in there that had like little nips and tricks and whatever that I definitely acquired.
I think that's the most important thing about everybody frowns upon a traditional apprenticeship now, but it's like when you do, so a lot of people do.
Yeah.
But I agree with you wholeheartedly. It's like, it's not just the one dude that's apprenticing you. It's all the people you're around. And I was fortunate enough to work with 2 other guys that one had a little bit of experience, one had a fair amount of experience. But for the most part, it was like we were all kind of learning. And the idea that one person could ask the other guy a question, and if he didn't know, 3 of us would figure it out.
Yeah.
So I think that's something that a lot of kids nowadays that are learning the trade out of their fucking basement off of Amazon or on YouTube, I think that's something they lack. But I think also the idea that not having to learn how to put together a machine, not having to worry about autoclaving shit, like everything now is just made to be quickly reproduced and knocked the fuck out.
It's great and all for like, you can do things faster and more convenient, but I don't know. I feel like you should still learn those basics.
Right,
so
exactly.
I had an apprentice for a minute, and I taught her everything.
So I think I remember the apprentice from way back, and I mean, like it was less than a year. How long she worked with you?
She was almost a year in.
And I remember when she left, she was kind of like, she's like, yeah, I can't do that no more. I want out. Like,
no, I let her go.
You let her go?
Yeah.
Okay.
There was a respect issue. I don't know. She'll probably listen to this, but
she's a lot younger than you.
She's younger, and I think that had a lot to do with it. I think like tattooing is more than just tattooing. Like she can draw her ass off. She's gonna kill it one day. But there was like that whole lack of like, I don't know if it was COVID that made kids weird. There's like social cues and things that she just wasn't picking up. And, that was ultimately the demise. But I don't know.
I think COVID is a good example of like, I think that was like, it hyper speeded it to where we are today, where people are more enamored by what's going on their phone. They don't want to talk to people directly. You know, nowadays, you know, with us, like originally you'd have to call the shop to make an appointment. Now we have a cell phone, we have texting, we have email, you have instant messenger, you have, you know, direct messaging, we've literally got like 7 different ways for people to contact us. And 9 times out of 10, unless the client comes in here directly, which I would say
it's pretty slim
is
nowadays.
Maybe 8%, 10% of the clients that physically come in to make an appointment and have an actual consultation. The majority of the people are just texting, and they're like, "Oh, who's available?" And you know, our front manager, she looks at it as, well, you know, why don't you look at the website, check out what everybody does, and then we'll just pick somebody for me. I don't care, just who can get me in the soonest. Now, part of me gets that. That's a very disposable way of thinking, and people don't know any better. You know what I mean? They don't realize that people are good at certain things, and that's who you should maybe connect with. But by the same token, that's just the way people are now. They just want to get in as quickly as possible with the least amount of work on their part. And now, what's your thoughts on like the idea that as a tattooer and as a shop owner or as somebody who's in a shop, how much of that is strictly your responsibility now because they've given the reins to you?
I don't know.
Are you dealing with a lot of new clients, or are you still dealing with mainly
me personally? It's like half and half. But most of those new clients are friends of the other clients, is what I'm noticing. It's a lot of word of mouth still. I feel like when it comes to like making appointments and all that, I kind of do it pretty old school because it seems to just work the best. So, you know, they can reach out however they want. But then I just go, all right, if I have a wait list, unfortunately I need to have one because I don't like booking out more than like 3 months.
Right.
They'll go on the wait list and then I'll, you know, open it up whenever, like I usually do it like 3 or 4 times a year. Open it up, they do a consult, and most of the time it's in-person consult.
You are doing in-person.
Yeah, because I can't do the 15 million emails back and forth and texts, and then you misconstrue what they're saying. So like I've noticed like the girls at my shop will like read an email, they're like, oh, they hate me, and I'm like, they don't hate you, let me read it another way, you know. And it's, you can put your own dialogue emotion into it when you're reading it. So well, how often
and I'm doing this from my own perspective, and so my guys, where you will get an email from somebody, you will get even a voicemail sometimes, you know what I mean, and it'll be this very vague, oh well, I want this, and they throw like a million different ideas at you, and you're just like, and in the back of your mind, you're already having this conversation with some nightmare of a client, and you're just like, fuck. And it literally comes down to a point. It's like, dude, pick 1 or 3 of these 12 things that you just threw at me.
Yeah.
That's what we're going to do. You know what I mean? So I totally understand where you're coming from, because you're already having the argument in your head before the person even walks in the fucking door.
Yeah, which sometimes, like, you know, I catch myself doing that too, and then they come in the door and they're amazing. They're great people. You end up having a great conversation. So I think a lot of it is just the client is super excited. And I think sometimes we forget like how it is to get tattooed and not be a tattooer. So I try to remember, like, you know, when I first started tattooing and when I was first starting to get tattooed, like I was nervous, you know, I'm like, there's these people and like, I'm an idiot and I got tattooed by these giant tattooers back in the day. And I'm like, oh my God, like I'm going to go get a sleeve by Nick Baxter. Like, I'm just not going to talk, you know? So it's like, I try to remember being that person and being scared, and like I just want to make them inviting and just, you know,
you want to make it
I want to make them comfortable, and if I get them to be comfortable and then I'm comfortable because they're comfortable, and then I feel like the whole situation goes
now. How does that rub off on the people? Because most of the people you're working with now are much younger. They've not been like, who's the oldest What's the longest tattooer?
I have two that are kind of in the like 20s.
Okay.
They're in the 20s too. A lot of the other ones are like probably 5 and under.
Right.
So
now, how do they like? Are you able to get that point across to them? Have they connected with it? Or are they still having a little bit of pushback or harder time with it? Because I mean, again, there is an age difference, and like you said yourself, I mean, if you were born after 2000, there's a good chance you're one of these fucking weirdo shut-ins. No offense, but yeah, I mean, the fact is, it's like they grew up in a different world.
Yeah, it's I don't know. I mean, I feel like you're going to get a different reaction of who the person is if you're sitting next to each other versus like through a screen or through typing. Like you can kind of make yourself be whoever you want.
Well, yeah.
And you don't get to, I don't know. I rely on like a lot of like personal like cues. Like what are they doing? Are they sitting on their hands? Are they Italian and talking with their hands? Are they, like, what are they nervous?
I think that's definitely a skill most kids nowadays don't have.
They don't have.
Because that's something that comes with age and experience.
Yeah, and I also think, like, if you have another job besides tattooing, before you got into tattooing, like if you did any kind of service, like restaurant or waitressing or whatever, I actually told my last apprentice she should go waitress for a while, because I think that helps, because it's not just about skills. Like, yes, you have to be good, you know, it'd be nice, but... I worked with Stretch a long time ago, and I still remember to this day the one thing he told me that kind of just like clicked, and I was like, okay, you could be a decent tattooer. You don't have to be like an amazing person with skills, but you do have to have the people skills. So there was a guy that we were working with that was a pretty solid tattooer, nothing crazy, but the way that he would get his clients to like just feel so relaxed and comfortable and laughing during the tattoo, he had so many repeat clients, and he was busier than another guy at the shop that was like killing it, like skill wise.
Right.
So it's like you see the guy with the skill, but no people skills, just sitting there taking a nap on the massage table. And then you see this guy who's like, yeah, he's good. Like I'd get tattooed by him, but he's not like anything crazy, but he's killing it and he's booked.
Well, I think that's the important thing that I think a lot of people forget.
Yeah.
I mean, in the beginning, when I first started tattooing, a lot of the older tattooers were not good.
Yeah.
But when you walked into their shop, you were either intimidated and you sat down because that's just the way it was. Yeah, or you went to certain shops because everybody got along with those guys. There was one guy, I mean, it's funny because everybody thought acted like he was gay because, oh, he's so flamboyant. Everybody fucking loves him. It was more out of jealousy.
Yeah.
Because the guy was an amazing tattooer, but you walked into his shop, you felt calm. He talked to your, I mean, he could get you in the chair, and you walked out of there going, oh, I'm definitely coming back here.
Yeah.
Fuck everything else, because it's not worth it. And that's an important skill that I think a lot of people just completely don't realize exists.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of what's happening nowadays is, you're getting these private studios where people don't want to necessarily talk. They just want to have their quiet, their safe spaces. You know what I mean?
And there's some clients that like that, but I don't know. I need people around me. Like I would go crazy. You have a different client all the time, but it's like you don't have anyone to bounce off tattoo ideas or anything really. So I think, that's great and all, but how long are you going to stay in a private studio for by yourself?
Well, it's funny how many people we're seeing nowadays, and I don't know if you've seen it on in maybe your circles, but a couple of people I know that went from like full-blown studios, you know what I mean, that they owned, and then went and said, fuck this, I'm out. I just want out. And he went and did private studio stuff, and now they're starting to make their way back into the studios, and not as shop owners, but strictly as an employee, you know what I mean? And I think that's got to be a humbling experience, because to go from owning a shop and then private studio where you're still keeping all your money, and then just going, you know what, take whatever percentage, I just want to be back in the studio.
Yeah. But I mean, I think that also, like, as a shop owner, like, sometimes you're like, why did I do this? Like, because then you're in charge of a bunch of people's livelihoods. So, like, I got to do my own thing. So I have, like, 3 businesses. I have my own, and then I have Stable Studio, and then I have Visual Expression. So it's like, I have to be in charge of all 3 of these. Yeah. So at one point, during the week, I'm like, what? I could be sleeping, or I could be doing my paintings, or I can do anything, but I'm doing payroll, And
well, that's an important thing, though, too, because a lot of people don't realize the pressure as a shop owner. that you feel towards the individuals when nobody else is working, or when things are slowed down, or when people lose a lot of appointments. Like, it's stressful as fuck.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because not only are you looking at it from a business perspective on your own end, where like, I got electric bills to pay, I got this to pay, but then you're also worried about the people that are with you, that you're just kind of like, these people rely on this shop. You need to figure out a way to make this fucking work.
Yeah. Because
if you don't, then what are they going to have?
But I also think, I don't know, so like, I have a lot of younger tattooers, and I feel like sometimes they think the shop owner is supposed to get them all of their clients.
Yeah.
Which, okay, like, yes, to a certain extent. I'm going to do some advertising. I've been trying to do these, like, weird little things.
I wanted to ask you about one of those things.
Yeah. Oh, did you find one? So, like, you have social media, and you have, like, a website, and you can do all these other things, and they're great. They're free. Maybe not the website, but, like, relatively free. But so does everybody else. Yes. Everybody has a social media, and everybody has a website. So how are you supposed to stand out when there's so much clutter when you go on your phone? So it's like, my consults in person, I'm going backwards, and I'm like, okay, let's do, some things stuck to telephone poles, or I made poker chips that I've been like randomly hiding in places, and then you can shoot out other local businesses and yourself and get like a scavenger hunt type thing going on. I've been doing like a couple different kind of like get people in.
What was the speed dating?
Speed dating.
Okay. Explain that. Wait, actually, you know what? Let's not explain that yet. Before we get to that.
Okay.
You said you worked in 16 different studios?
13.
13
So Stable Studio, when I opened it, was my 13th.
Okay, and that was your studio?
Yeah.
Okay, yep. So why? Like, why? So for me, if you came to my shop as number 13, I would have been like, you've worked in how many shops before? Because the way I look at, because I have a couple of old, they're not friends any longer, but they used to brag about how many shops they'd worked in. And my response was, oh no, you didn't work in that many shops.
Yeah.
You were fired.
I was never fired.
Okay,
I've never been fired from any job I've ever had.
Okay.
So there is that.
Okay.
I wish I was sometimes, but...
it made it a lot easier to get out sooner.
Right? Because then you don't have to have that awkward conversation. So, I don't know. I mean, the Edge, I realized I wasn't really going to go anywhere. And the guy that was teaching me, like, bloodborne pathogens wise, I didn't feel so great there anymore. There was some things I learned how not to do in my apprenticeship. So I ended up getting pulled out by another artist there to go to the one at Enfield. Then I had an opportunity to go work at a shop that somebody was opening, and I was like, all right, I need to get away from the Edge name, because at that point they were kind of going downhill.
Yeah. They never really had a great reputation.
Yeah. I mean, they were good because they had all those advertising, so they killed it, and everybody knew who the Edge was. So then I stayed at that place for a hot minute, but the guy who owned it ended up stealing money from the guy who was the money guy. And then it was just like a bunch of others. And then I ended up at Visual Expressions.
Which is with Stretch and all those guys.
Which is with Stretch and Cracker Joe and Diego and James. And it was just like a really good crew. And I stayed there for about 6 years. So that was like my first like home base. I
think the first time I met you in passing was at one of their events maybe. I don't remember. Because I was tattooing the Stretch back in 2000. So right after we opened Hope. I think I started doing his back or something. I don't remember.
Yeah.
I did a bunch of work on it.
Yeah, because I think I actually put lotion on that a few times.
Okay,
so yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, so he used to come into the shop and get at Hope. I want to say it was 2003, 2004, I think. And that's when I realized, like, I had gone to the shop, they had done an event, and I didn't realize how big that shop was. There was quite a few people in that shop.
It's huge.
And you're still in the same location of that space?
Yep, same spot. I redid it. It looks completely different.
So when you decided to open up your own studio, was it out of frustration, or was it out of... this is the next logical step? Like, what was the thought process of leaving and going to do your own thing? Because this is right. Because you went to a new place after you opened your own place after Visual Expressions.
No, there was a couple other ones in between there.
Oh shit!
So Visual Expressions was probably my like third one technically, but I was only like 2 years in. But it was like trying to find like that right spot. And then I stayed at Visual for a long time, but then all the good guys left. And it's kind of like, okay, like I feel like I maxed out of this shop. Like I want to learn. I want to be with people who make me sweat. You know what I mean? So I wanted to push myself. So I ended up going to work with Pooch, which was really cool.
Okay.
But he didn't like paying his electric bill. So that was only for a few months. Great guy though. I love you, Pooch. He's great. And then it was just like finding another spot here and there. So I ended up, the shop before I opened my shop was my friend Aline's shop, but then before that it was Nautilus for a few years.
Oh, okay.
But same with Nautilus, like a lot of the guys were leaving, and it's like, okay.
Yeah, it's...
I think when I left, there was like 5 other guys that left.
Yeah.
So it was kind of like, it was going through like a rebooting system.
Yeah, and sometimes being part of that's not really, you almost don't want to be part of that, because if it's like you're part of the old guard, all you're going to see is what's changing, and me personally would probably find that very frustrating. I don't fit well in the situations that I have little to no control over.
Yeah, and that's also my problem. So it's like you see something going wrong in a shop and you can't do anything to change it. And some of the shops I worked at were run great and some were not. And I think I just tried to kind of pick up like, okay, that worked. This doesn't work. That should be different. So when it came time to open Stable Studio, I did it the way that I thought I should do it and make it the easiest. So there's like...
you made it easy. I made it so easy to a point where it's like it's on your fucking property.
Well, so that was kind of by accident. We bought this awesome property for like way stupid cheap, and there happened to be a horse barn in the back. And then it was just like a couple days of me going like, I don't know, dude, I need to change something. Something needs to change. And my boyfriend is just like, we could just turn that horse stable into a tattoo studio. I was like, I don't know,
How many square feet is the space?
It's about 1,000.
Oh, nice.
It's not huge, but it's like super cozy. I mean, it's a horse barn.
Yeah, right.
But we did a lot of renovations to it because it was just like your basic framed out horse barn. But I kept it so that it looks still like it was a horse barn. I didn't want to change the integrity of the building, which...
Well, that's the whole point. That's one of the reasons you want to be part of something like that.
Yeah, and I was like, I've never seen a tattoo shop made out of a horse barn. And then it was like Stable Studio. Like, it's not hopefully going to go anywhere. It's a horse stable.
It's very
I was like, okay. And once I had the name, I was like, all right, we got to do this. So, and then I had just had I was about to have my son. So I was like, all right, I have a maternity leave coming up. Like, let me see what I can get done. I'll go to the town. I'll do this. I'll see how much this is going to cost. And, it just kind of started falling into the right spots.
Now, how much pushback did you get from the town itself? Because Connecticut is technically, they give you a base set of guidelines from the state, and then every city is slightly different. Like we're in New Haven, and we've been open we're going on 23 years now, and the health department's finally caught up and said, hey, by the way, we're going to start licensing not individuals but studios, like salons, and they're lumping us in with fucking nail salons and everything else, which is typical. I'm used to that.
They don't know.
No, they don't have a fucking clue, which is something else I want to touch on.
I'm sure we're going to talk about that.
Yeah, exactly. But that's one of those things. Like, how was the individual city that you're in? Were they pretty cool with what you were trying to do, or?
So Bolton is like a quiet little. Nobody knows where it even is in Connecticut town most of the time.
I'd have a hard time telling you.
Yeah, you're like, Bolton, where the fuck is that? So I knew it was going to be interesting. I was like, I'm going to be this tattooed person who's going to go to the town. So I didn't write it in any emails. I was like, hey, I want to gather together, the person in charge of, what's the word? Who does like the building inspections and stuff. Zoning. Yeah, there you go. Zoning. I need zoning, and I need, the health department lady. I was like, I just need to make.
And you didn't say anything.
I didn't say anything. I was like, I'm looking to open a business, and these are the 2 areas where I'm pretty sure I need to speak to first. So I pulled a meeting, and it was like, I think 3 days after my son was born. So I was like, hey, if I need to reschedule, because I'm having a kid, and I kind of used that little I'm just a mom trying to make a business, Yeah. Because then I was like, I'm going to drop this tattoo bomb. And like, this is a little town who has nothing. There's nothing to do.
If you had come out of the gate saying tattoos, you would have been shut down.
Yeah, exactly. And I was like, I need to meet them first because I'm old school and I want to sit down in front of them. So I got to meet with them and they were super chill. And they're like, we knew it was a tattoo shop. And I was like, how did you know? But they were really cool. They gave me like a bunch of stuff to do. I had plenty of time at that point, kind of.
It's almost like talking to a cool grandma.
Kind of, yeah.
It's like, I got my tattoo, Grandma. You want to see it? It's like, oh, look at you.
Right?
It's like they're just excited to be part of something so outrageous.
Yeah. I guess they did give me a little bit of pushback, but I didn't know that from working with them. they were like, hey, you need to have bop, bop, bop done by this meeting. Come to this town meeting. And I was like, here's all my stuff. They're like, all right, you need bop, bop, bop more. Come next month. I was like, okay, here's my new stuff. And then I think I did 3 meetings. And at the end of it, one guy was like, thank you so much for having your shit together. You know, not with saying shit, but... And I was like, yeah, I'm like, I'm not trying to waste my time, and I'm definitely not trying to waste your time.
Yeah.
So
you want to make this as professional as possible,
yeah.
which most tattooers tend not to be that way. So
yes, very much true.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, here we go, let's do this. So it was a matter of getting permits and having work done, and renovating the shop took maybe like a year and a little bit extra.
Oh, that's a chunk of time right there.
Yeah.
Now you were on maternity leave at this point.
So I was on maternity for like 3 months of that. So like it was like all the paperwork stuff is pretty much.
Now were you tattooing in the meantime, like in different places and stuff?
I was at Nautilus at the time.
At that time, okay.
Yep.
Yeah.
So I was working there for most of it, and then Stretch was doing some like remodeling, and I was like, hey, if you find another person to fill one of those new rooms and you find an extra one you really like but you don't have enough room, maybe hire them, because you
might be bouncing.
Yeah.
So you weren't straight up with like, you didn't come out of the gate and be like, hey, by the way, I'm opening up a shop.
No, because I wasn't sure if it was going to work, and then I was like, I know it's going to take a long time, and I feel like once you give your notice to anybody and anywhere,
I'd like to
they
think
treat
that,
you different.
I'd like to think that Stretch might be different than that, but I've worked in like when I gave my notice, I got let go the next day. Like literally, like, my shit was in a box ready to roll, and I don't blame the guy. We both hated each other, so I was fine with that.
Yeah.
But other places, the guys have said, he's like, hey man, if you're gonna leave, just do me a fucking favor, pack your shit and leave.
Yeah.
Don't fucking try to give me notice. You're not doing me no fucking favors. If you're not gonna be here, then fuck off.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like being mean. That was just them being like, this is how it works. I don't really care. And I think a lot of shops are like that. I very rarely find like where someone's like, yeah, I gave them 6 months notice and they were totally cool when I left, like, a month later than that or a month earlier than that. Like, yeah, I don't know of a lot of tattooers that are that cool. No.
I think a lot of it, goes back to like that old school mentality. Like if you're going to leave, they're scared you're going to take all their clients with you, and I would never do that. My clients are my clients, your clients are your clients.
Well, and I think that's something of today. I mean, that goes without saying. I think like, if you look at it from the perspective of like, you've spent this much time building that kind of a clientele, like you said, like, as a shop owner, you do want to be responsible for a lot of the business coming in, so that the people are being taken care of. The guys who work with you are being taken care of. But by the same token, whatever they build is on them. Now, having said that, there's been a lot of times where we've been, like I said, we've only had 3 people like leave. 2 were fired, and 1 left. Julio, who started the shop with me, and Eric, he opened his own place up in Wallingford. A lot of his clients went with him because they were his clients, but there's still, I still tattoo, I'd say at least a half dozen to 10 that just were like, no man, I like this shop a lot. I like Julio a lot, man. I'll get there eventually, but I just like coming to this shop. And that's a nice thing, because as a shop owner, and even as just being in a shop, like even if it wasn't my shop and I just worked here, you still want that pride of working in a shop that people are just digging on coming to. And it's not just me, it's everybody that makes up the shop. It's an important aspect of that.
Yep.
So, but let's talk about the what you do to get people through the fucking door. Like I said, we started out doing gallery shows and art events, and now it's turned into walk-in days. We do pop-ups places and shit. But you've done a lot of stuff. It's funny, the poker chip thing that you brought up is something I've been talking about. But I was trying to include a lot of the restaurants and bars in downtown and stuff to try to get a bunch of people involved. But the poker chip thing was a big deal. It was like this like lucky ticket thing.
It's cool because then you find it and you're like, what is this? And you pick it up and you're like, $25, like, to wear? And then you're like, you Google it or whatever. And you feel special for winning.
We're gonna do a QR code.
Yeah, there you go.
QR codes are smart, because then you can just fucking.
And then I've heard a lot of people don't care about QR codes, so I don't know.
Oh, dude, go to any restaurant with anybody over the age of 40, they lose their fucking minds. Yeah. It's just like, can I have a paper menu? Like, what the fuck?
I like holding the menu. There's something about holding the menu, but I feel like you got to stand out, right? So do something weird. And I've just noticed like a bunch of my clients are having really awful times dating.
Right.
Like dating is like a whole, I don't know. I'm glad I don't have to do it right now. Hopefully never again in my life. I'll be a nun before I have to date again. I don't know.
56 years old, fuck.
Nope. So it's like you hear all these stories and it's one after the other after the other. It's just these awful dates and like they're just like, I hate online dating and like where do you even meet people? Bars aren't the same. Like it's a totally different world. So I'm like, dude, let's bring back speed dating. It's like something that I always thought was so silly. I've never done speed dating myself ever. But I was like, it's 5 minutes in front of somebody, you chit chat and, there's no pressure to go on another date and it's 5 minutes, So I was like joking around for a while, like, oh, would you be interested if I did like a tattoo flash thing with speed dating? So it's like you get like-minded-ish people. Everybody likes tattoos. They're going to come. And then you sit down and you do a speed dating and then you do a little flash event at the end. And then
so the flash event's not happening during the event, it's happening after.
Yeah.
Oh, so that's interesting. Because I was going to say, if you put two people in a room together on this 10-minute tattoo and they get to talk.
We thought about that too.
Because I could see that being weird because you're under duress.
Yeah.
Like they say when when you've been injured and the person who saved you or whatever, you have this like enamoring feeling towards that person.
Maybe it would work better that way then.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I mean, shit, you might actually you may be locking people into relationships they may never wanted to have. But.
That's true. And then the tattooers were like, oh, well, that would be cool because then we could be like the third wheel on all these dates. I'm like, yeah, but then it's like, then it gets weird with like moving it around and still trying to give a solid tattoo, So, and then I was like, even if they don't want to get tattooed, we give out gift cards.
Right.
So it's like, all right, you can either have like 20% of your ticket price goes to getting tattooed or you can have a $20 gift card to come back any other time.
Right.
And we also do piercings at Visual, so that helps too. So there's a little bit of both. But yeah, it worked out really great. I messed it up completely the first time.
Well, that's understandable.
I'm not a math person. Like I can do payroll, but this was like, how do you figure out, like, I think we had 26 people show up. How do we get it so they can all date each other? Because nowadays it's like, you have straight, gay, somewhere in between, kind of a guy,
I didn't even think, Jesus,
trans, you have like everything.
That's how old I am. I'm just thinking. Date night.
So we had people like signing up and I had them answer like a couple of questions and like, so we could figure out like if we had the right amount of certain types of different people. But then I completely messed up how they were going to each date each other. So I think it was a little bit of me messing it up. And I think some people moved in the wrong seats.
Right.
Because it was only at one point, like 2 or 3 had been on the date already, but the rest of them had new people. And I was like, how did that happen?
Yeah.
So this time we're just doing straight. And I apologize for everybody else out there, but it's so much easier. And so once I do the very easy core of it, then I can try to figure out how to do the rest of it. So I think we're just going to separate by like wants and needs. But
well, that's I not for nothing. Yeah, it's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot. Like,
when you throw that into it, like when you throw the second part into it, you're like, all right, that just we're not doing that. It's just too difficult.
Well, then I was like, I opened it up with like, all right, we're all going to be dating each other, okay? Everyone, if you're sitting next to it and you're not gay and there's a guy there, just talk to him. Be like, oh, have you seen any nice ladies today?
Exactly.
Whatever. They were all the best group of people I could have asked for because I was just apologizing the whole time.
Well, I would imagine something like that, man. Like it's got to be, you're taking on a lot of responsibility for somebody to have fun.
Yeah.
And a lot of it is fun, but there could be an actual, outcome of something, life changing.
Yeah.
Well,
there was 6 couples that matched. We made 6 couples happen.
Are they still together?
Even I messed it up. I know one of them was still talking a couple weeks ago. So
nice.
I don't know if they still are.
How long ago did you do this? This was a while ago. I remember when I texted Leo. He said he was getting ready to do it.
November?
Yeah, that makes sense.
I think it was before the holidays.
I think that's when I tattooed him. Was back then,
yeah, it was cool. I don't know. And so everybody was like, dude, that was actually pretty successful.
Well, I think, it's funny. When we first started doing the gallery shows, not that that was anything special, you know what I mean? But when putting out food and drink and the old shop had a really nice vibe to it, that was something everybody was just super jazzed by.
Yeah. When
we moved here and we kind of had to one-up it and doing the flash walk-in days, which is not new to tattooing. No. I mean, not at all. I think what made it new was the fact that we were designing the flash, everything had a theme, and it was stuff that no matter what, we were going to enjoy ourselves. Yeah. You know what I mean? And that was one of the things, like, everybody... When we first did the first one, there was like, I don't know, we had like 18 sheets of flash or 12 sheets of flash. And Tiff, our manager, was just like, well, what if people don't want to get that? And I'm like, well, they can go fuck themselves. They don't have to get tattooed. Like, this is for us. And she was just like, what are you talking about? I'm like, flash walk-in days, it's about making money, most certainly. But I want to enjoy everything that comes down the pipe. And it's like, we're only doing it one day a month, one day every couple of months. Like, so I want to have as much fun as the people that are coming to the event. So we have food, we have drink. I mean, even if you don't get tattooed, you can hang out here for 6-7 hours and have a fucking blast.
Yeah.
And we've had people do that, you know. The whole point of those events were to get people to come back. And that's the problem. It's like, well, when are you doing the next event? I'm like, well, why? And they're like, well, I want to get that piece of flash. I'm like, dude, just come in tomorrow.
Yeah.
I'll do we own the flash. Like, I would love to do this any day of the week. And people just don't get it. They want to be part of something, which is great. But the whole point is to get people to come back.
Yeah.
You know, and that's been the thing when we've done breweries and we've done restaurant and bar pop-ups and stuff. Like, we've always had this theme of food, drink, you know, tattoos. Getting people to come back after the fact is difficult because they're so into being part of the event that they're just like, oh, that was great. When are you going to do the next one? Yeah. I'm like, dude, just come and get tattooed. It's the same fun, you know, talk and conversation and whatnot, you know?
I think there's just different types of tattoo people, like people getting tattooed. You have like your collectors who seek out certain people and just, it's like a little gallery on them. And then you have other ones where they pick that one artist and they're just like loyal to that one artist. There's other ones who are loyal to a shop and they get tattooed by everyone in the shop. And then there's those people who just love those splash events. Right. And that's where they get tattooed. They're like, oh, there's one at a brewery. Oh, there's one at Hope Gallery. Oh, there's one over here. And
right.
There's a Friday the 13th. And, you know, they're going to get a sleeve or legs covered in flash.
Yeah.
And it's just kind of, I think, just who they are.
Yeah.
But even so, like, even if you're doing those events, you're still making those connections with those people. And then they're looking out for your future events, which will make your future events successful.
That much better.
Even if they're not coming back to the shop for like a normal, you know, everyday tattoo, I still think it's a win because you're still getting them. You're still getting them to come to the shop. You're still getting them excited. So it's just a different type of tattoo client, I think.
Most certainly. And I think one of the things I like about the flash events that we've been doing is everything is a substantial piece of tattoo.
Yeah.
We're not doing little line drawings. We're not doing Friday the 13th shit. Like, people asking us all the time whenever we do an event, what's the minimum charge? What kind of a deal are you doing? I'm like, we're not. Tattoos cost a certain amount of money. That's what we're charging. Yeah. $100 and up. And on average, I'd say that the tattoos are on average probably about $150, and people
come in for them.
Yeah, the first couple of tattoos we did, I mean, you know, shit, we only did maybe 5 or 6 a piece, but the tattoos on average were $280 and $350, and I was shocked by that. I was like, nobody's going to get these bigger tattoos. Make sure we load up a bunch of smaller ones, and people were just like, no, we want to get tattooed.
Yeah.
Like, they're not coming for little tiny bullshit bangers. Stuff that they're going to regret. I don't say regret because most people don't. When you say regret, you're going to regret little bitty tattoos. Everybody acts like I'm attacking them, and I'm not necessarily attacking them. I've made comments about how people who get these little tiny tattoos and it's like stickered all over their body, you know, people are like, well, that's how old tattoo flash used to be done. And I'm like, yeah, there was a big difference between old tattoo flash and a little line drawing. That when someone shits up their entire arm and then comes in and like, I want a sleeve, and you're like, okay, we'll do a lot of stars and dots and gray shading by everything. Like, it's not necessarily made for that,
yeah.
You know? But with what we're doing is we're trying to introduce people to like what it used to be like to get tattooed back in the day, where you got a nice little tattoo, and when you got the next one didn't look out of place next to it because it just kind of continues to work around.
Well, I think that's true too, because like if you're doing these flash events, you want to put your best foot forward because you want them to come back, or at least to your next event or whatever it may be. But I feel like a lot of these flash things, they just like rush through things just to get like however many people. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, it would be great to tattoo everybody that you get on your little list when you go to a brewery, but sometimes it doesn't happen like that. No. You know, like you want to give that same client the same attention you're going to give in the shop.
Exactly.
Because otherwise, what's the point of doing it?
To me, it's about
not McDonald's.
Exactly. To me, it's about putting your best foot forward. It's about being as professional as you can, considering the situations. I mean, I know, having said, oh, we're doing it at the back of the brewery, we're doing it at the back of the... I know that sounds unprofessional as shit, but
not
in all honesty,
but
I mean, I don't think so, because I mean, when we roll up, like, we are as professional as can be, you know? And we've been doing this shit since 2009, I think was the first one we did, you know? But yeah, it's just about, like, really putting our business, our trade out there, and letting people know. It's like, yeah, dude, this is real and as professional as any other fucking business, you know? I don't know. To me, it's about introducing people to stuff. I mean, we've done people's first tattoos at some of these events.
Which I think is crazy.
Yeah, I do too.
I love those. I'm like, really? Like, you wanted to get your first tattoo in front of all these people at a brewery? I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah. A good friend of mine, he got a big pump. He's in the restaurant industry, but he got a big pineapple, skull thing, and it was a lot of fun to do. And It was like first tattoo guy who would never in a million years gotten tattooed, and he got his first one there, and that's. To me, that's phenomenal. I think that's super cool.
Yeah.
So getting back into the professional thing. So the way I got to really know you, I would say, honestly, the first time I really got to talk to you, was at the tattoo school boycott, basically.
Yep. Yeah.
New Haven had a company, and I'll call it a company because I don't think it's a matter of being tattooers or professional shops or anything. They were running a tattoo school. I think it started in Brooklyn or California. I don't remember which, but they have shops.
Yeah.
They have schools in Brooklyn and California.
Yeah, there's a couple scattered in betweens too. But yeah.
And they tried to open up. Well, they have, as far as I know.
I think it's still there, but it's not as big of a
deal anymore. Yeah. And when we found out about it, because Connecticut at that time did have a thing happening with the apprenticeship thing, where you couldn't just apprentice for a few hours and then be given a certificate and start tattooing. You had to put in a little bit more time. So we went down there, and I was one of many tattooers.
Yeah, there's probably like 30 or 40 maybe of us down there.
People made signs and shit. Yeah. It was a bit...
It was like old times. It was nice.
Yeah.
It was just missing a Molotov cocktail, that's all. But
damn.
If only.
If only the times were that old.
But yeah, I had heard that it was going on. Before that, I was trying to do some stuff with the licensing. And I was just like, oh man, there's like going to be a bunch of people that are going to be angry down there. And like, maybe they're that mad where like what I was going to try to do would work. I fucking hate the government. I hate politics. I hate all of that shit so much to where it's so interesting to me that it even exists, So when I heard about the license going in effect, I gathered, I think there was 5 of us, and I got a sit-down meeting with some of the people that were writing the legislation for the license. At that time, it was still a thought, and it was still being like thought of or whatever. So we sat down, and I'm still kind of mad to this day because I feel like I should have been louder. But at that point, I was only like 12 years into tattooing.
Louder in the meeting or louder?
Louder in the meeting and like what we should have done. I let somebody else kind of dictate it because I thought he had more like charisma, and he, had a suit on with his, briefcase, and he was like, let's just listen to what they're going to say. And at this point, we're just going to put our name in the ring and we'll see what happens. And I wanted to go in there and be like, you need to involve us because you're writing licensed stuff that involves all the tattooers. Right. And if you're not going to listen to a tattooer before you write these laws, then what's the fucking point? Because that's all the laws. They're written without the people who are actually involved in the law being involved.
Right.
So I just kind of took a back seat because there were people that were tattooing longer than me there. And I was like, all right, like, who am I? I'm fucking Kelly Green. Like, no one fucking knows me. So I was like, I'll just sit there and I'll let these older guys kind of take charge. I was like, I brought them here for a reason, and I wanted to be respectful to the people before me.
All the tattooers.
All the tattooers. Like, I'm just one fucking person. What's my one voice?
Yeah, but I think we've had this conversation before where that one voice, a lot of times, is a lot more important than you give it credit.
But I still feel like it needs to be a collective, No,
I agree with that.
But I feel like some people don't know enough to speak up when it comes to that time. So I should have spoken up because I did my homework, and I had my 12 years, which, is still something. But to compare it to who else was in the room, I was like, I'm not that person.
Yeah.
So they ended up writing the legislation without involving any of us, and they had 5 of our contacts.
Chances are they weren't even writing legislation; they were taking legislation from another state.
They took it so they took it from other states. They took it from massage therapy, and then they blended it together. And the lady who wrote it when we started that organization that came after the school, She was like, I knew this was going to happen because I told them not to do this. And it was like hey, you need to get this legislation done by Friday. And she was like, well, what the fuck? I don't even know anything about tattooing. So she pulled from wherever. And there's no offense to her. She knew she wasn't doing it right, but she had nothing.
It's a shame it's a shame that she didn't have the forethought to just reach out to you separately.
Yeah.
They don't need to know any of that. You don't have to have a fucking board to have a discussion, especially when it comes to our fucking livelihoods and how you're going to enforce those rules. I mean, the biggest issue I've ever noticed, I fucking hate the health department. I have not liked the health department from the moment I got into this business, because I have never, and I'm not saying they don't exist, but I have never met an individual that works for those people, that works for that age of the government, that has a fucking clue as to what they're doing. Because 9 times out of 10, they're overworked, they're understaffed, they're incapable of understanding anything of the regulations and the rules that they're creating and why they're doing it. Like they're just jumping through the fucking hoops that the people went before, and they're making us do silly shit because that's what it has to be. And it's just like, no, it doesn't. If you sat down and actually came up with actual rules that made fucking sense, then nobody would have a problem with that. My other issue comes from the fact that 9 times out of 10, they don't know how to enforce. Because they'll come into our shops, charge us money, and then we know full well this. I found out just this past week, there's a guy working up the street in his house. And he wanted to come in here, and he's like, hey man, I really admire what you guys are doing. You know, I work in New Haven also, and I found out it was through his house. He wants to come in here and pick our fucking brains. I'm like, yeah, you may not want to do that, dude, because I'm not going to be polite. You know what I mean? But that's one of those things, like you can't say to them, well, go to that guy and fucking bust his chops.
But they won't, because they don't have the people. So there's been a couple times now after doing that organization, and it's no longer
so after the schooling thing, a couple of you guys had come up with an organization called CAPT. Yeah. And the idea was to actually get a group of tattooers together to work alongside the federal, well, not the federal, the state people. Yeah. And try to get them to make changes to like apprenticeships and bullshit. And to a degree, you kind of did that, because most of the people that were coming down for the schools were coming from New York or from Massachusetts. We recently just had somebody come in that's taking the course. And I said to him, I was like, I didn't say you're wasting your fucking time, because you're never going to get a job here. And unless you're an amazing tattooer, you know, that's just not going to happen. It's like nobody's going to sign off on a guy who goes to school. Yep. And again, I'm saying that as an older guy in this business, because I'm sure there's a lot of shops now that would be happy to have somebody who just went to the school.
Which is crazy to me. But then you have Oregon that has a tattoo school. You have to go to the tattoo school before you send. So that's what I was kind of worried about. I don't know. Happening here. Like, I don't think you can learn everything in a school. Like, no. You could learn, like, I guess a couple basics. You could do bloodborne pathogens and first aid or whatever, like, I guess. But you need that like actual shop experience, and you need to learn by somebody who I feel like was also brought up like that. Like, and I know a lot of people are like, oh, that's gatekeeping and that's whatever. I'm like, no, dude, that's just like the tradition of tattooing. Like,
it's protecting,
it's tattooing the integrity.
Exactly.
Like, you can't, I don't know, like, yeah, you could go buy your shit off Amazon and you can screw people up, but it's like, you're the ones who are going to fuck it up for everybody else, man. You know, like, it's a bunch of these people, like, okay, you're going to let them tattoo on, what was it, grapefruit or bananas or something, like the day of that first little, you know, you pay $500, you come in for this one little starter class, and you get to already touch a tattoo machine and use it.
They're fucking.
I'm like, I'm fucking sorry, that's not okay.
Because and this is how you know how illegitimate these businesses are. You have to leave that trail of breadcrumbs. Yeah. If you don't have the breadcrumbs, if there's not a bit of cheddar at the end of that class, why would they come back for a second one? You have to do everything in your power to capture them. And in my opinion, now you're just a bullshit salesman. You're a snake oil salesman, because you're not giving them anything. If you wanted to be a legitimate fucking school, then make the people show you what they're capable of drawing and creating, and actually how talented they truly are. Not just some fucking kid who watches TikTok who thought it would be a good idea to tattoo today. You know what I mean? His mom's got $2,000 burned a hole in her pocket for the first 2 courses. Yep. You know, that's the aggravating part. I mean, especially with social media, the amount of shit that we're force fed with individuals who are running these classes where they got 8, 12 people in front of them, and they're right out of the gate, they're putting a fucking machine in people's hands and they're just watching them do their thing. And at the end of it, they're like, oh no, we can hire you. But what are you hiring? You're bringing in noobs who know nothing, and then you're going to stock a bunch of shops. all you're doing is watering down the entire pool. Now, I'm not going to say out of those 30 people, 15 people, there's not one diamond in the rough.
Yeah.
But you ain't going to fucking find it. You're going to wash right over it because you're looking to make more fucking money off of that person.
Yeah.
It's a very frustrating thing, and I think we live in a day and age where if we maintain our values, then we're looked at as being the fucking bad guys, and that's frustrating because you're just trying to explain to people there's a way to do it where, you know, everything I'm saying is contradicting what else is going through my head, because the fact of the matter is the reason why the apprenticeship program can be difficult is because it's a ride or die kind of situation. You're working it out on these people where they're just going to want to be part of this thing. I mean, if they had a bad apprenticeships one place and they fucked off and moved on to another place, but if they were that serious about wanting to do it, they'll find the right place to land.
Yeah.
You know, not everything's got to be a shit show where you're taken advantage of. And that's why I think with a proper apprenticeship, get to know the people you're asking. Get to know the individuals in that fucking shop. Don't just roll in cold and be like, hey, I'm looking for an apprenticeship. It's not how it works, man.
Yeah.
And don't be offended when someone who looks at your stuff goes, yeah, it's just not what I'm into, you know?
I think a lot of people take it as a job. So like when the school came through, they're like, oh, it's going to be like an electrician or a plumber or a hairdresser. And it's like, you know, we can charge these outrageous fucking prices for our classes because we're offering you like trade skills. And I'm like, yeah, I mean, I guess you could lump us in with something like that, but it's not. It's never been like that. Like tattooing, the reason why I love it is it's been its own thing and it's been like governed by its own people, like there until now. You know, it's just, it's something that like, it's a whole lifestyle. You're not just getting into tattooing because I want to make some cool fucking Instagram videos and put myself in the mirror and then show you a quick tidbit of my shitty tattoo I did. You know, it's just, I love tattooing, and it sucks that it's gone down this shit hole.
So do you fear, because I do you fear that it has changed to the point where it's not coming back? Like there's always going to be the old school, the old guard, you know, towing the line, but we're in a day and age now where things happen super quick and it's too easy to do stuff. And I mean, dude, look how many tattoos, like I get shit on all the time because I don't want to do a tattoo this fucking big. You know what I mean? Because the way I look at something is it's a tattoo. It should last forever. Now, granted, that little shitty tattoo is going to last forever, but not to the quality and it's not going to look like what it did 10, 15 years ago. I just recently heard a thing where people were talking about color realism. How color realism has kind of changed the way people think about a tattoo. And the fact that, well, this is how it ages. You know, every 10 years you might have to get it maintenanced. I'm like, no, there's a reason, because I think one of the quotes they said was, well, what lasts for over 10 years? Everything. Yeah. Like, and the whole point of tattooing being forever, it's in the word. It's tattoo. It's forever, you know? But my concern is that things have changed to a point where people just don't fucking care, and they just assume that that's just the way it's going to be. And if you don't do it, somebody else will, obviously. But I am of the opinion that, nobody told the line. The second one person did it, of course other people are going to do it. It's money it's money out there. It's waiting to be taken in. But nobody ever said you shouldn't do it. You know what I mean? It's like, you know, breast surgery. You know, these women who get these ridiculous implants. A doctor is the one that had to do that. She didn't go to South America and get it done in the jungle. She got it done by a professional in fucking Beverly Hills who didn't give a fuck about any kind of decency of what he was being asked to do. He just did it because he's creating a freak. And I think that's fucked.
I think
Not to say that big-breasted women are freaks.
But I think that comes back to like the whole moral of the job. Like you have to have some kind of morals, you know. Maybe don't. I don't know. But like you're putting something on someone forever. So like you need to know like what's going to hold up, what's not going to hold up, what you can tell them, like how you have to treat these people. Like I feel like if you're going to these schools, you're not going to learn those things. You're not going to learn like by somebody who's been in it forever, like, hey, I've done this and this didn't stay, or I've treated somebody like this and they were mad, or, you know, like there's a lot of things that like, yeah, you can learn online and you can watch YouTube and you can do things on your own and you'll probably be a great fucking tattooer, but you're going to miss a lot of the good things that are going to make you a really fucking good tattooer.
Well, and that's why I say I fear that it doesn't matter anymore because it's gotten to the point where it's become so attainable and so
But I think that's where people are going to make it or break it. And I feel like those people who understand why a real apprenticeship is the way the real apprenticeship is, those people are going to make it, and the people who are just doing it for like, you know, I'm a fucking tattooer rock star, like those people are going to fade themselves out because they're not going to learn all of the skills that you need. Like I said before, it's not just the actual drawing skills. It's like you need to have people skills and understanding what you're doing to people.
Right.
Like this is a forever thing. Somebody trusted you with their skin forever.
Right.
And I think people just take it for granted. And I think those people, you know, I'm waiting to just see them start dropping like flies, because that's what I think is going to have to happen in order for the tattooing to go back to where it was.
For some kind of
where it's not
normalcy to
just
happen.
cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, you know, there's people who respect the tattoos and there's people that don't. And I hope that it's the people that, you know, have a full understanding of what tattooing is that are the ones that are going to make it. And I've seen a couple of them not make it, and that's what's sad to me, you know.
Well, so it's the same thing. I've had two different apprentices come into the shop who've both been in a couple of shops now, and I've heard of other people in a similar situation where, I mean, shit, that technically their apprenticeship is over and they're working in shops and they can't make a living in these shops. And I think that, you know, the one thing, and this is where I think if you don't have a traditional apprenticeship, if you're not being brought up to draw and create, and what I mean by drawing and creating, it's not just painting or whatever. It's doing stuff that is going to help your business. And that's drawing flash and getting stuff on the walls and creating, you know, art for business cards, whatever. I think that's the one thing. When I was in California a month and a half ago, one of the things I noticed was a lot of the shops were slow. A lot of guys were just sitting around, but almost every single one of them was painting. They're all working on hand-painted flash. They're all working in pretty traditional shops, you know what I mean? But they're all creating something that they can hang on the wall, that they can bring to their clients, that they can use to entice new clients through the fucking door. I think that's something that a lot of it, like you go to a tattoo school, you don't know anything about that. What are you doing? No. Tracing fucking flowers out of a book, you know, with a fine line and acting like, oh, look what I did. Like, no, you didn't do that. You know what I mean? You didn't bring anything new to the table. You're just following the next trend. Which, by the way, it's a trend for a reason, because when those tattoos turn to shit, yep. And most of those people start getting cover-ups because the tattooers that they're coming to are going, I can't do anything with this. You know what I mean? I could do a beautiful tattoo next to that, but you still got this pile of shit here. You know what I mean? And for all those people out there who say they can cover it, go fuck yourself. Knock yourself the fuck out. I love
cover-ups. I'll cover it.
No. I'm not saying it from that perspective, but to the perspective of like, oh, well, you can fix anything. No, you can't. I mean, we both know that. There's been times where half the time the client needs to come to they have to come to the realization that he can only do what he can do. You can't just cover it with whatever you want. You know what I mean? Because how many times have you had somebody come in and be like, I got this big, really bad flower. Can you cover it with this name? No, you can't.
Like you can if you put the name somewhere below and then cover the flower with something else. Yeah, but
exactly.
I get pretty. I don't know. I love cover-ups.
I used to too until that's all I was doing.
Yeah.
And that's where I think it gets frustrating because you can look at it from the perspective of it's always going to be a challenge. That's great. There's some days you don't want a challenge, man. You just want to go into work and do a fun tattoo.
Yeah, but then those challenging tattoos, if you were the one that said, yeah, you know what, fuck, 5 other people said no to you,
yes.
I got you. But you have to be open about what you're doing. And, you know, sometimes they're hard tattoos to cover. Sometimes they're, like, easy. And I'm like, all right, you just went to people that just don't like cover-ups.
Yeah.
But then you get that client that comes back to give you, like, their whole sleeve that's
Most
empty.
Certainly. Yeah.
So it's like, you know.
Most certainly. I think my complaint from it comes from the fact that there's so much of it nowadays. And a lot of the tattoos aren't that old that we're covering.
Yeah.
That's the big
Some of them
problem.
are under like 6 months is what I've been getting lately. And I'm like, Jesus Christ.
And you're looking at tattoos and it's like, who did this?
Yeah.
And then you're like, why?
Yeah.
Like, at that point, I don't know. That's incredibly frustrating. All right. So instead of going down that horrible fucking road, so with the CAPT, how long were you in charge of that? Because I remember the conversation I had with you is, because I was going to the meetings out of a curiosity to see what was going on. I didn't want to be left behind on stuff, and I wanted to have, if I saw things getting out of hand, I wanted to be able to put my 2 cents in, but I didn't want to do it. And I made that perfectly clear to you. And I said to you, this is a thankless fucking job.
Yep.
That you're going to bust your chops, and you're going to do it for all of us, and most of these people don't give a fuck, because most of them don't even want it done.
Yeah.
They want to see it, they want to see it disappear, but we all know it's not going to happen. Yep. The health department, the government, they're going to get more and more involved in our industry. We used to be a completely self-regulated industry. We're not anymore.
Yeah,
which is a
sucks.
fucking shame. It drives me out of my fucking mind.
So I did it for about, it was probably around for like 4 years. We did it, maybe 5. We did 3 different years of legislation trying to fix it. We weren't really going for a lot It was just to like make sure that you could only have, everybody agreed on 2 apprentices. I think you should only have 1 at a time, but 2, you know, maybe you have somebody coming out of the apprenticeship that they're almost tattooing on their own and you want to get another one or
to
whatever.
me, when someone comes up with a thing like that, it's like, dude, if you've had more than 2 apprentices and you ain't a fucking phenomenal artist and the first 2 apprentices aren't still with you, go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
You don't get to keep doing this.
Well, the whole point of me having an apprentice is to have them work in my shop.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like, you get to bring up a little baby and have them flourish and
well, you
keep
train
catering to them, you know?
people in the way in which you want people around you to think.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm of the opinion that people bring their own themselves to the shop.
Yeah.
I've never
Which they
apprenticed
will.
I've never apprenticed anybody, and I don't really intend to. I don't want
do it.
to.
It's not worth it.
I know it's not, because, and again, I don't have the fucking
Yeah.
way, especially at my age, dude. Like, I don't give a fuck. I just want to do my thing. I want to work with the people I'm around. I want to continue to create in my own way. I don't want to be responsible for like a little mouth that needs to be fed. And I just don't. I can't. I just can't do it. There are better people for doing it. Find those individuals, but do the proper way in doing it. Like, don't just expect it to happen. You know.
So the legislation was to be 2. You could only have 2 per 1 licensed tattooer, and the tattooer that was supposed to be the mentor was supposed to have at least 5 years of experience. At that point, I think it was about 5 years the license had been around, so it would work paper trail wise.
Which is smart, because a lot of times, like my guys here, we've had issues with like who doesn't declare taxes, who does this and who does that, and I missed a year or whatever, and the government don't care about that.
Yeah.
You know?
So it was like little minor changes. It wasn't anything crazy. There was some people that were like, hell yeah, this needs to happen because I'm watching these other shops be fucking little puppy mills for tattooers.
That's a good way
it's still happening, you know?
Puppy mills.
They're just little boop, boop, boop. You see like, holy shit, how many fucking apprentices does this person have in this shop? Like, and then like, you know, they'll have a whole new rotation every couple months.
There's shops down here. And the best
I
part
could
is,
list a bunch of shops that do it. And I'm
and
just like,
all those apprentices just go someplace else.
Yeah.
And it's like, you sit there and it's like, dude, this is
this
how
is
is
the
word not
problem.
gotten out?
Yeah.
That you're nothing more than a bullshit artist who is obviously incredibly difficult to get along with, or you just offer nothing for what you're willing to take.
Yeah.
And again, I think part of the problem is you know, these people back in the day would get called out. You can't really do that anymore.
You can, but...
Well, I mean, I do it behind closed doors.
Yeah.
I mean, I've never gone up to somebody directly and been like, hey, you're a piece of shit for doing this, that, and the other thing.
Yeah.
You know?
And I feel like they probably know they're pieces of shit for what they're doing. But a lot of these people who are doing it, you know, I guess I get it. Most of them, I think, are charging a lot of money. So it's like they're a tattoo school, but they're their own little entity, so it's okay.
Oh, yeah. And by the way, having said that, when we say you're like a tattoo school, that's not a fucking...
It's not a compliment.
That's being shit on.
Yeah.
Like, if you're charging ridiculous amounts of money for an apprenticeship, while it might be worth it, unless you've got those people still working for you and they have nothing but good things to say about you, and I'm sure there's going to be a couple people that do, but the fact of the matter is you're just as fucking despicable as these tattoo schools.
Yeah, they're the same to me. They're in the same exact category. I mean, I've had four apprentices at this point. 2 of them didn't make it. 2 of them did. I never charged a single one of them, you know? Like, I show you secrets, you help me out by doing this. Hannah, who's still working in my shop, she helped me do a lot of the capped stuff. Without her, she was like my little minion behind the scenes. And that was like most of her apprenticeship was like doing all of that stuff. Which was kind of cool for her because she got to come up and like learn like all of why are the older tattooers fucking pissed? Like, what is this? Like, why is there a tattoo school and why didn't I go to tattoo school?
It's almost
why
like
do I have this?
It's almost like a history lesson on top of the fact that she gets to be the gatekeeper for the next generation, because not for nothing, those people have to know something. And if they've never lived it, then having somebody of their own age explain to them, well, this is why everybody's pissed off. This is why people scream and holler and hate when the health department shows up at their shop, because they're not helping anything.
But the thing that I found amazing is that I had to like beg and plead and barter with people to like get them to be part of this like organization, right? So it was like me going around at conventions or like putting stuff on social media. We started doing like a website, and it's like, dude, I'm trying to help the integrity of our craft. Like, do you want to have this like be the same as it is? Like, and I understand like technology changes things, times change things, but like this was to keep like our home base of like what tattooing should be. And I don't think that anything that we were doing was anything crazy. I wasn't saying like, all right, we all have to tattoo in hazmat suits. And, you know, I wasn't going for extra legislation that would hurt anybody who's doing it the way that we are doing it. It was just so that it wouldn't become this puppy mill bullshit. And it was really trying to knock down the way the school was trying to get everything like, oh, if you have like $20,000, you can become a tattoo artist. Just come on in. Yeah. I'll let you tattoo this banana today, you know? And it's like, no, dude, that's not, you need to learn the history and you need to learn where everything's coming from. And, you know, maybe I'm old for saying that, but like, if you don't know why you're doing things and why you're permanently putting something on someone's body and you don't give a fuck, then you're probably the problem. Yeah. Like, you know, like you need to have those core morals in order to be a tattooer. Like, that's just me personally. And I don't think you're going to get any of that shit from puppy mills or tattoo schools or whatever you want to.
No, I think that's where it comes down to the individual, and it shows the character of that individual. The person that can go to something like that, put up with it, get through it, and then realize, fuck, this was wrong. Now I need to figure it out and do it correctly, and then surround yourself with good people. Again, not saying that you couldn't probably try to make a living having gone to these schools, and not for nothing. If anybody out there has gone to these schools and they're doing well, please let us know. Put it in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Yeah. But it just seems that the majority of these people end up staying in these weird shops that I don't think are going to be around for a super long period of time. Yeah. I don't think that they've put the time in properly.
I also feel bad, though, because those people that go to the school think that they're doing it the right way because they don't know.
Because
it's not like you can really look some things aren't Googleable, and I love that still. But, like, if you're, like, a 17-year-old kid, you're like, oh, man, I'm supposed to go to college, and then your mom's like, oh, I heard about this tattoo school. You love doing art. Why don't we enroll you in that? Thinking, like, that is a school. It seems legit. You know, some kids probably go in there and they have no fucking clue what they're doing to themselves. Right, exactly. Oh, and those are the people I feel bad for.
That one kid was his grandmother paid for the fucking thing. She dropped him off, a 17-year-old kid. Drove down from Massachusetts.
Like, make a living for himself. And those are the kids I feel bad for. But then there's also that lady who, you know, somebody was like, do you even know who you're talking to? And she's like, I don't give a fuck who I'm talking to. And, you know, she was like, this shouldn't be, like, pretty much gatekeeped is what she was saying. She was a hairdresser. What was she? A chef. She was like 15 different hats. Yeah, exactly. And she just wanted to learn tattooing. And I'm like, oh my God.
But at that point, you know, I'm not against anybody who really wants to learn something so badly that they just go out and do it. I mean, a lot of people in our industry have always done that. They all learned on their own.
Well, that's how we all started.
Yeah, they all kind of learned on their own. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that because it shows a certain amount of dedication on that individual to go that far and then go to a shop with skills and show people what they're capable of and then learn all the stuff that they couldn't learn out of their home. I think that these schools tend to be a shortcut. I think that these tattooers that are willing to take on several tattooers, apprentices at a clip for $5,000, $2,000 at a clip is another shortcut. It's a bullshit shortcut. I don't think that if you're not taking the time to get to know somebody, because you know as well as I do, you're like this in a shop. You've got to listen to what they have to say. They have to be willing to listen to what you have to say. And by the same token, they have to be willing to trust. If you don't know the person personally, you're not going to trust them, especially kids today, people today. They're going to be like, fuck you, I'll do it my own way. I mean, I did it when I started my apprenticeship. Yeah. I used to fight with the guy who apprenticed me all the time.
But that's part of the tattooing. Like, you have to be independent. If you're not independent on your own, you're never going to make it because you don't really have a boss. You have, like, you know, your shop owner or whatever, but, like, you're your own boss. You're going to be doing your own everything.
You have to find your own voice. I agree with that wholeheartedly. But I think in the beginning, you do have to kind of be a little bit more malleable to what you're being broached with. Yeah. You know what I mean? And a lot of the kids now, a lot of the people nowadays are just like, oh, this is what I want to do. I want to do fine line black and gray.
Well, I hate that so much.
Exactly. But the thing is, it's like you would know that if all you want to do is micro tattoos, you would know why most artists fucking hate it. And the ones who are excelling at it really don't give a fuck what happens in 5 years. Yeah. You know what I mean? And again, I know it's going to offend people, but I really don't fucking care anymore.
But I think there's also, like, Instagram and social media and whatever has, like, made it so, like, if you're starting out as a tattooer, you have to pick and choose what you want to do. Yeah. Like, dude, I'm sorry. You should learn everything. Like, I have my apprentices learn everything, even if it's shit I don't do. I'm like, I'm going to try to teach you some Japanese American, you know, like you're going to learn some traditional, you're going to learn like the basics of all of these different styles, because I feel like if you're not well-rounded, you're not going to make it. Like those tiny little fine line tattoos, like you said, are a fucking trend. And what if they're not the trend tomorrow?
Exactly.
Like all of a sudden it goes back to Japanese tattooing. Well, okay, you don't know shit about it. Good luck.
There's this little prick there's this little prick up there now from California. I don't know where he's from originally, but this guy popped up during COVID. You know, calls himself. I'm not even going to get him. I'm not going to give him the fuck. Anybody who knows has a clue as to what I'm talking about knows what I'm talking about. But this little motherfucker is out there telling everybody, it's like, you know, oh, you can just learn. It costs you $200. You can get this, that, and the other thing. Blah 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 blah. He's made himself a personality on fucking TikTok and Instagram. He still sucks dick. I don't mean that in a bad, I shouldn't have said it like that. But he still sucks as a tattooer. He's a fucking horrid tattooer. And it's one of those things, it's like, dude, you're doing horrible trends and you're not even good at it still. Like you've been doing it for, how long has COVID been over? He's been in a legit shop. Well, it's legit in the sense that they hire anybody who walks through the fucking door, probably pay him a fucking weekly salary, and are ripping off every one of these motherfuckers. But the fact is, it's like he's been in a shop forever. He's working on a regular, and he still blows. There's a reason for that. All the people that he's around are just like him. Some of them are probably very talented. I'm not going to say they're not, because they're bringing in a lot of people from foreign countries that are tremendous, artists. But they're coming here. They're cashing in on the trends, and they're good. But the fact is, this motherfucker still can't learn. So what is that telling you about doing it his way? Yeah, you can do it, but you're not going to get anywhere with it. And again, I'm not saying that everybody is like that. There's going to be people that are going to be the outliers, that are going to stand out no matter what. They have fucking talent, and they're going to do what they do. Okay, I'm never going to put that down. But for the most part, those people are few and far between. You know, and you can say, oh, no, everybody's good. There's a lot of tattooers out there. You're seeing a small portion of it. And that's what kind of drives me a little crazy. What kind of drives me a little crazy. So cap is over. You flirted with the idea of politics for a bit too. What were you trying to run for?
I do dumb things sometimes. You know, I was doing the cap thing, and my senator for my local town that was in charge of 4 towns was supposed to help push the legislation for tattooing. So we had the first year we got it through. It went through the Public Health Committee, and then it was going into the Senate House for like debate where they talk about it. So, but you have to have your senator bring up the legislation. Otherwise, it just sits on a table under coffee and it does nothing. So I had met with my senator. I was like, hey, this is what we've been working on. I've been working hand in hand with the Health Department of Connecticut. We have everybody backing us. Like, here's like our organization. I think we had over 100 tattooers at one point. You know, this is all of our stuff that we've worked on for months. Like, please bring this up. It's past the committee. It's now your turn. This motherfucker, I had a meeting with him, and then he decided he had a doctor's appointment or whatever. His secretary called me, and then I never heard from him again. Couldn't get in touch with him. I tried emailing, calling him, nothing. And I was like, okay, this dude's like 86 years old. And he's not in touch with anything. Right. And then you drop the word tattoo. He's like, I don't know what the fuck that is. I don't like tattoos. I'm old. I don't know, whatever. So he never brought it up. So all of that work that I did when I had just had my daughter and my son. So I had 2 tiny little babies at home. I'm trying to run a business. I'm trying to run my own business and then do all this legislation for all these tattooers that most of them fucking didn't want me to do or were angry or whatever. And I'm like, but this is for your own good. So I'm just going to not listen to whatever you're saying. And I'm going to help you out in the future by doing this, you know? So this guy didn't bring it up. It pissed me off so much because I'm like, that wasted so many people's time, not just my own, but like everybody who was helping me, right. You, everyone. And so I just kind of joked around. This is where I should probably stop opening my mouth, like saying dumb things, because then they become fruitation. And I was like, man, wouldn't it be awesome if I ran for senator and fucking threw his ass out? And then my boyfriend was like, you should do it. And I'm like, what?
It's always a good
I'm
idea
like,
when
what do you
somebody
mean?
else is whispering in your ear.
Yeah, so then, I'm like, I flirted with the idea a little bit. And then I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to do it. I'm like, really? You think I should do it? He's like, you should fucking do it. And I was like, okay. Because I hate politics, right? But like, let's run for fucking senator like an idiot. I've never been a politician. I've never even been on like a town board. But I'm like, I tried to run this capped thing. I did okay, I was like, and then if I was the senator, I could bring up the legislation. Right. So then I could push it forward a little bit more. And it was the worst time to run for senator I think I could have ever chosen.
Really?
It was 2020.
Oh, God.
So I signed up January. I had to put my name in like the running to be on the bill. I made my own political party because I don't like any of them that are out there.
Yeah. Well,
I didn't want to be affiliated. Yeah. I didn't. I'm like, what do you pick? A or B? Like, or do you pick a third party, which you're going to fail at anyway? I was like, well, if I'm going to fail, then I might as well pick my own stupid fucking party, name it however I want, and not be affiliated with anybody. So that's what I did. I kind of just wanted to make a little ripple in the pond. I knew I wasn't going to win. It would have been crazy if I fucking did. That would have been, I don't know, some world record or something. It would have been great. But I ran and I was able to like do debates, and the guy like never showed up to debates, the 86-year-old guy that I was running against. But he was in like a Zoom or whatever, and they were like, why are you running? And I was like, well, I don't need experience. This guy's saying he has all this experience, but he doesn't do anything. I literally had a bill that I was trying to get passed, and he completely ignored all of it. And then it's like, you go door to door and you hear the same story about the same thing, about the same person. And I'm like, so I got to put that out there a little bit, and I learned too much about politics while I was
welcome
running.
to politics in the United States of America.
And it was so crazy because it was during COVID, so it was like, it wasn't even politics. It was bullshit. Yeah. So like all the shit that I learned, I can't unsee. So at this point, like everyone's talking about Trump and whatever, and I'm just like, dude, I can't with politics. I literally burnt myself the fuck out between doing capped and running for senator and then trying to continue capped after that. I can't. I would love maybe one day to bring it back up if I had the proper help, but it takes a lot out of you.
I think that's it's the people that hold you up. That's really kind of key problem.
And I had a couple of them. They helped a lot. But it takes a toll on you. And then it's like, okay, you're trying to do all this good that you think you're doing good for this community that you're a part of, that you love and you respect. And then I lost friends during this. Like, I'm like, dude, I'm trying to help you. And they're yelling at me and going behind my back and telling them to overthrow my throne. I'm like, I'm not in a throne. I gave myself so much extra work. You want my work? Take it, dude. If you can make this work, take all of the here's all of the papers I've been doing. Yeah. And it's just like, I feel like people just didn't give a fuck. And it's how tattooing has kind of been, and I think it always will.
To be honest, that's why we're here. That's why we're that's why we're complaining about all the stuff we're complaining about. We have been self-regulated for entirely too long. We just assume things would continue to go the way they're going, and when they're not, and now the old guard is slowly dying off and disappearing and throwing their hands up, it's being taken over by the younger generation, and good on them, and I hope that there's something left for them 20 to 40, 50 years. You know what I mean? That's the only thing. I think that's been the biggest issue.
I think it just sucks because we kind of put our hands up and we're letting people on the outside take over our industry. That's what pisses me off. Like, it's not about giving it to the younger tattooers. I would probably rather have that. But it's like, now we have government agencies dictating how we're supposed to do an apprenticeship or how many apprentices. And you can have an infinite amount of apprentices at this point, and it's totally legal.
Well, I think, again, that's part of that's part of the reason that individuals like us need to be a little bit more outgoing and loud about letting people know what's fucked up and what's not. And the scary part is, I think the older generation has a harder time dealing with the politics of it. And the younger generation just doesn't really give a fuck because they're just looking at it as like, hey, whatever, let them do it.
Well, a lot of people are just like, well, I have my own whatever shop and I'll just ignore everything. And I'm like, okay, you can only ignore it for so long. Like, now we're at a point where like you have a license that means absolutely nothing.
Yeah, it's $250, $450. And
every once in a while I get like an angry text or whatever from someone, and then I'm like, okay, but one came up about the dude selling the licenses on Facebook Marketplace.
Which I tried looking
openly,
into,
So I I don't know if I included you in the emails.
No.
So I've been back and forth with the health department about it, because I was like, dude, are you fucking serious? This guy's like openly selling licenses.
In New Haven?
No, he's in Connecticut. He was in Meriden tattooing, and then New Britain. I don't know where he is. I was trying to look him up last night, actually. But his license is still active, and there's nothing getting taken about... Like, there's nothing pending on his license. I wrote in April to the health department. I still have, like, my contacts. I still use the capped email, because I'm like, that's how I can try to help the tattoo world without actually doing it all over again. But I have all those contacts from the State Department and the legislator and like local health departments we worked with. And the trick is to add like everybody in the email so that they all do like checks and balances on each other. And they're like, hey, did somebody look into that? Like what? And then they all start like responding. So I got them to open up an investigation about this guy. I got a fancy letter in the mail saying, oh, we've received your whatever and we're looking into it. I think it was January. I was like, dude, nothing ever happened with this guy. I looked up his license. It's still active. No pending crap on him. And I'm like, okay. So I wrote another email. I was like, hey, like, I know you guys are all busy and you have a lot of things to do.
But what the fuck?
But what the fuck, dude? Like, you're telling me I'm paying for this license and like it's considered a Class D misdemeanor, which is bullshit anyway. It's like throwing something at a car is in the same category. But it's, I'm like, dude, you're telling me that I could go out there and like sell off licenses and not get reprimanded? You're now completely destroying the integrity of our license.
Yeah.
So you're saying to every client that gets tattooed, it doesn't matter like if they have any schooling or anything, as long as they have a license, they can tattoo. A piece of
paper that's
and I'm like, okay, and like the license is such bullshit. Like it makes, I hate when my clients are like, oh, you have to have a license. I'm like, do you really want to go down that road with me? Because you don't.
Yeah, not the time.
So, you know, I was like, hey, like you're really kind of destroying what you've tried to build for us or whatever.
Yeah.
So they responded, a couple people responded, and I got in touch with the person who's doing the investigation. He's like, oh, we're still investigating. I'm like, dude, it's been like 9 fucking months.
Yeah, they're not doing shit.
You're not doing anything. And then I looked again, and so from January to March, like it's still nothing has happened. So this guy is up for his renewal in June, and if I see he gets renewed, I'm going to make a huge fucking thing. Because I'm just mad. Maybe I shouldn't care.
Include me on stuff. I'll back whatever you do. I mean, especially when it comes to stuff like that. It's one of the biggest frustrations that I have in this business is the fact that the lack of caring on the part of the state and the Fed.
Yeah, and that's what makes me mad is we gave our power to that,
yeah.
And then they don't do anything. It's like working in a shop with a shitty owner that just doesn't buy paper towels, hires the shittiest people, like doesn't fucking know how to use a mop. You know what I mean?
You don't
like
speak up.
You're literally
going in day in day out.
You're giving it up to the wrong people. If you want to sit there and be quiet and have somebody good in charge, that's fucking fine. But you're literally giving up everything to people who don't give a fuck about you, and you're paying them money every 2 years to do it.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know, like I get so mad, and I just get mad that other people don't get mad, because if we all just actually came together as one, we could fucking do something. But tattooers suck, you know, and I am sorry guys, but you guys fucking suck.
I am so happy I got that. You know what? I love the fact that I get called out on other people's podcasts because I get very passionate, I get very loud, and I think you're the first person. You're the first person on this podcast that I think was as animated as I was, and I'm happy you got to that point. I mean, I don't mean to give you agita for the rest of the fucking day, but I'm really glad that you spoke out the way you did, because I think it's something that needs to be said and needs to be getting out there. And I know for a fact that there are hundreds of tattooers out there, probably a handful of 3 or 4 of which will watch this podcast, that basically feel the exact same way, and they're pissed about it as well. You know?
And it sucks. There are a couple people that are speaking out here and there. Like when I was making Capped, I was in touch with a couple other people that were doing similar things in other states, because they're pissed too. And it's just like, you know, even if like me and like the people who are helping me and like a couple of the other people from other states actually fucking got together and did it, that would be cool. There is the APT. There's a couple people that are louder than others.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. You know, I think it's finding the right people. Yeah. And again, I think every state's going to be different. That's, I think, the biggest issue. It would be nice to have something across the board, but you know full well places like Oregon are not going to kowtow to another state because they're going to lose the revenue.
Yeah.
I mean, and again, that's what it comes down to. It's the money the states and the cities are making. I mean, New Haven's about to drop a ball on us with studios, and salons. And dude, I haven't seen these motherfuckers in over 20 years.
Yeah,
and now they're going to come up.
I've never seen one.
Yeah, for real.
I've never had a health inspection.
So now,
ever. Like
my
23 years
my
in?
last thing with the health inspector was in New Hampshire, and it was a fucking laughable scenario. Like where the guy rolled in a private studio that Corey Kruger and I were in, walked in, checked out our studio, walked to the bathroom, and felt it was a little messy. It was a small bathroom, you know what I mean? There's nothing messy about it, you know what I mean? Maybe we didn't put the bow on the fucking toilet paper. I don't know.
How dare you?
And this guy comes in and he writes us up for a disheveled toilet or something like that. And he was like, I can come back during the week and give you. I was like, no, we're good. And he's like, well, you're gonna put that on the. I was like, I'm gonna put it right here, and I put it on the wall. And I'm like, because I don't give a fuck what you say. And he looked at me, he's like, what do you mean? I go, you just left Jim's tattoo up the road, right? And this is in Seabrook, New Hampshire. And I don't know if Jim's is still a pigsty, but I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably. But I was like, my wife works in that shop. She won't use the toilet in that shop because it's disgusting. Okay? That's one of that hands down, I would go as far as to say probably the most disgusting shop I've ever worked in. You walked into individuals' rooms and it was like a little oasis in a shit show. And when I tell you the toilet in that place was disgusting, it was like a bus stop in fucking somewhere on Route 66, forgotten, murders, whatever, disgusting. And I'm like, you're going to tell me you passed that fucking shop? And I know what that shop is like. I know what my wife deals with. She comes running home every day to use the bathroom because she can't use it at the shop. And you pass that shop because there's 12 artists in there and there's only 2 here. Do me a favor, go fuck yourself and get out of my shop. And he walked off. I never saw him again. And we were out of there within a year and a half, and he never made another stop.
I don't know. I would love for the health department to actually come in or to something so that I could.
Well, I'm interested to see if they come here or if they're just going to collect their fucking money. Honestly, I think they're just going to collect their money and we're never going to see them because they're already going entirely to remotely. By doing emails and like, oh, just fill out this information and cut us a fucking check. I want to hold back and
you come here and you earn your check. Yeah, 100%. How you could have the shittiest shop and write a nice, pretty email. And
or you could just be completely passed over by them. So we're trying to play the game. We'll see what happens. Well, on that note, I'm going to put. Is there anything else you want to say or? I'm going to have all your information, the shops, anything personal you have, stores, whatever. I'm going to put all that in the description. Is there anything you want to leave off on?
Don't suck as tattooers. I don't fucking know. I wish it was different. I don't know. I hope tattooing can live on and not be a shit show.
Yeah.
So I guess we'll see,
I think it will. I think it's bigger than anything we bitched about and complained about. There's always going to be the hardcore that are going to fucking maintain and toe the fucking line. But I think we're so old school and so want to be part of this that no tsunami of new age bullshit is going to wash us away. I mean, the fact of the matter is this has been underground for a long time before it became mainstream. It can always go back underground. I mean, if anything, COVID taught us.
Yeah, exactly.
It taught us that.
It was funny because that was like my half a life tattooing. And I was like, I'm going to do something big. And then I was like, I'm going to fight to get tattooing back. That's what my big thing, half of my life tattooing. Fuck, okay.
Yeah.
But,
exactly.
It was fun.
Well, thank you very much.
Thank
I
you.
really appreciate it. Thank you so much for coming out. Hey, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this. Please like and subscribe. Spread the word. Thank you so much for coming. And I'll see you when I see you.